the age before memory, when empires were still dreams written in dust, there rose a man who believed he could command eternity itself. His name was Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. He was born into a world of endless war, a land fractured into 7 kingdoms where kings devoured kings and peace was nothing more than the pause between battles. But Qin was not like the others. He saw chaos not as fate, but as a challenge. Through fire and iron, he bound the lands together under a single name, China. And for the first time in centuries, silence fell across the battlefields. Yet within that silence, a new terror began to whisper, the terror that all emperors share, that no matter how great their power, time will one day erase them all. So Qin sought to defy it. He dreamed of a barrier so vast it could be seen from the heavens, a wall that would stretch across mountains, deserts, and the bones of the earth. A wall not just to keep enemies out, but to hold eternity in. He summoned armies not to fight, but to build. Hundreds of thousands of men, soldiers, peasants, prisoners, marched north to carve a line through the heart of the world. For years they toiled in snow and sand beneath a merciless sky. They say for every stone laid, a heartbeat was lost. Their blood became the mortar that bound the empire together. But the people whispered another story. They said the wall was alive, that it drank the souls of those who perished, and that the emperor had sealed their spirits within the stones to guard his realm long after his death. When the wind howls across the northern plains, some say it is not the wind at all, but the voices of the dead, the builders, the slaves, the forgotten, still standing watch, still obeying their emperor 2,000 years after his heart has turned to dust. And so the wall endures, a serpent of stone, coiling across time, its shadow cast not only upon the land, but upon the very soul of mankind. This is not merely the story of how a wall was built. It is the story of how one man tried to conquer death itself, and how in doing so he became immortal in the only way he could, not through life, but through legend. And today we begin our journey into the myth, the mystery, and the empire behind the Great Wall of China. The Emperor's Dream. In 221 BC, after centuries of endless bloodshed, one man stood above the ruins of 1,000 fallen kingdoms. His name was Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. He had done what no ruler before him dared even to dream. He had united the warring states, forging one empire under heaven. But for Qin, unification was not enough. He had conquered the land, yet his heart yearned for something greater, something eternal. The chronicles say that when Qin gazed upon the horizon from his palace in Xianyang, he saw not peace, but impermanence. He saw time as an enemy, death as an insult. He saw the heavens themselves as something to be subdued, a realm not above him, but ahead of him. And so the emperor began to dream. He dreamed of an empire so vast that it could never be undone, of walls that would bind the world together, of monuments so mighty that even the gods would take notice. From the farthest deserts of the west to the frozen plains of the north, he commanded his legions not to rest, not even in victory. The land must be one body, he said, and its bones must be of stone. It began as a line of fortresses, but soon that line grew, stretching across mountains, rivers, and the very edges of the known world. The people called it Chang Chang, the long wall, but the emperor called it something else, his bridge to heaven. He believed the wall would do more than keep invaders out. It would keep time itself from eroding his glory. Each stone, each tower, each battlement was a prayer, a spell against oblivion. Yet the gods, it seemed, demanded a price. Tales spread through the empire of strange omens and of storms that tore through the construction sites, of the ground trembling beneath the workers' feet, of men disappearing into the mist and never returning. They whispered that the wall was cursed, that the earth itself resisted the emperor's will, but Qin paid no heed. He sent tens of thousands more, peasants, soldiers, prisoners, all bound to his vision. For every man who fell, 2 more took his place. And still the emperor dreamed. It is said that one night, beneath a sky split by lightning, Qin stood before the half-built wall and spoke to the heavens. The gods may hide immortality from me, but I will carve my own eternity into the bones of this world. The wind howled as if to answer him, a voice of protest or perhaps of warning. But the emperor only smiled, for he believed that even the storms now spoke his name. In his mind, the wall was not just a barrier. It was a living thing, a serpent of stone coiling through the wilderness, its spine unbroken, its eyes watching over the realm, and at its heart was him. The ancient texts tell us that Qin began to see omens everywhere. He sent envoys across the seas in search of the elixir of life, while his generals bled the land dry to feed his grand design. As the wall rose higher, so did his madness. He no longer trusted the mortal world. He spoke of spirits that whispered to him through the stones, ancient guardians of the earth who demanded offerings. And the offerings came. Not gold, not incense, but lives. Legends say that when a section of the wall collapsed, the emperor ordered the bodies of the dead to be buried within it, to bind the structure, to silence the restless winds. Whether myth or truth, none can say. But the wall still stands, and in its silence, some swear they can hear the beating of a heart. By the time Qin's reign reached its height, the wall stretched like a scar across the body of the world, an empire of dust and stone, built not only by the hands of men, but by their fear, their faith, and their desire to be remembered. In that vastness, the emperor saw a reflection of himself, unyielding, eternal, beyond mercy or decay. But even the greatest of dreams must face the dawn. And soon, the very forces he sought to defy, time, death, and the will of heaven, would begin to rise against him. For no wall, no matter how high or how long, can hold back destiny. This was the beginning of the emperor's dream, and the beginning of his downfall. The Wall of Blood. The emperor's dream had become a storm. By the second year of construction, the Great Wall devoured everything it touched. Villages emptied, fields withered. The empire that Qin had unified through war was now being consumed by his vision of peace. From dawn until the last trace of light, men labored under whips and drums. Their sweat turned the soil to mud. Their cries echoed across the mountains. To the emperor, they were not people. They were instruments of eternity. But to heaven, they were souls being weighed upon the scales of fate. They came from every corner of the empire, and soldiers, scholars, peasants, even children. Some went willingly, believing they were building a monument that would outlast the gods. Others were dragged in chains. All became dust beneath the stones. The chronicles say that on the northern frontier, the earth itself began to bleed. Thousands perished from cold and hunger. When the snow melted in spring, the rivers ran red, and the people began to whisper a name that would echo for centuries: the Wall of Blood. It was said that each night, as torches burned along the ramparts, the spirits of the dead rose to watch the living. Eyes of ash flickered in the darkness. Tools moved on their own. The wall groaned like a beast in pain. Even the overseers grew afraid. They spoke of hearing voices from within the stones. Pleas, curses, songs of sorrow. The air grew heavy, as if the land itself was suffocating. But Qin Shi Huang did not falter. He saw these signs not as warnings, but as proof of his power. "The heavens rage," he declared, "because they fear what I am becoming." And so he built faster, harder, higher. In Xianyang, the imperial astrologers begged him to stop. They spoke of constellations trembling, of dragons turning their backs to the north. One of them, an old man named Lu Sheng, whispered that the wall had become a wound upon the world. Qin ordered him executed the next morning. "Let heaven tremble," he said. "The earth is mine to command." Yet even the Son of Heaven could not silence the wind. It is said that a great storm rose one night, a storm that tore the sky apart. Lightning struck the towers, fire swept across the plains. When dawn came, whole sections of the wall had vanished into the earth. Tens of thousands of workers were gone or swallowed by the mountain they had tried to tame. Among the survivors, a legend began to grow. They spoke of a woman, a worker's wife who had traveled 1,000 miles to find her husband's body. Her tears, they said, fell upon the stones, and the wall wept with her. So great was her grief that the gods took pity, and the mountain opened, revealing the bones of the dead within. Her name was Meng Jiangnu, and her cry became the cry of all who suffered under the emperor's dream. Whether myth or truth, her story spread like fire. Across the empire, whispers turned to unrest. The same people who had built the wall now began to curse it, and to curse the man who had demanded its creation. In the heart of his palace, the emperor could feel it, the weight of 1,000 souls pressing against his triumph. He wandered the corridors at night, unable to sleep. He dreamed of endless walls stretching beyond the stars and of hands reaching from the stones pulling him down. Still, he would not surrender. He turned to the mystics, the alchemists, the seekers of immortality. If the wall could not protect him from death, perhaps magic could. He sent ships eastward toward the rising sun in search of islands said to hold the secret of eternal life. None ever returned. And so the emperor of 10,000 years stood alone, surrounded by a wall built from blood, haunted by the silence of those who had died to fulfill his dream. The wall endured, but within its endurance lay a curse, a reminder that no empire can be built without sacrifice or Senya, and no man can build eternity without becoming a ghost himself. For Qin Shi Huang had won the world before, but in doing so, he had lost his place within it. And as the sun set over the endless spine of stone, the dream of the first emperor began to crumble, the immortal emperor. The great wall was complete. A serpent of stone stretched across the northern world, its shadow crawling over mountains, deserts, and graves. To the emperor, it was proof of his triumph, the border between the mortal and the eternal. But behind that triumph lay silence. The drums of war were gone. The land was united. And yet the emperor felt no peace. In his dreams, he walked along the wall at night, listening to the wind whisper the names of the dead. Every name was one he had forgotten, and there were too many to count. Still, he refused to yield. He had conquered men, conquered kingdoms, but one enemy remained, death itself. The chronicles say he gathered the greatest alchemists, mystics, and scholars of the age. They spoke of potions brewed from mercury, of jade elixirs drawn from the breath of dragons. The emperor listened, his eyes burning with the same fire that had built the wall. He declared, "I have bound the earth, now I shall bind eternity." Ships were sent east, beyond the edge of maps, in search of the fabled Isles of Immortals. The sea swallowed them one by one. Still, he sent more. He believed that somewhere beyond the horizon the gods were hiding his destiny, and he would find it. But the gods, it seemed, had grown tired of his defiance. His empire began to fracture beneath him. Famine spread across the heartland. The people who had once cheered his unification now cursed his name. Even his own court trembled, afraid to speak, afraid to breathe. The man who had united the world could no longer unite his own soul. As he traveled through the provinces on his final journey, his chariot rolled through lands once fertile, now turned to dust. Behind him, The wall rose and fell with the horizon, a reminder of what he had built and what it had cost. It was there, on a lonely road by the eastern sea, that the emperor fell ill. The alchemists offered him mercury, the very poison they had promised would grant eternal life. He drank it without hesitation. Within days, his lips turned pale, his pulse slowed, and the man who called himself the Son of Heaven met the only power he could not command. Yet even in death, Qin Shi Huang refused to be forgotten. He ordered that no one should know of his passing until he reached his capital. His ministers filled his carriage with fish to mask the stench of decay as they journeyed west. Through towns and valleys they passed, the people bowing as their emperor, already a corpse, rolled by in silence. When at last his body was entombed, the builders sealed his mausoleum with rivers of mercury and oceans of stars. Above him, the armies of clay, the terracotta warriors, stood in eternal formation, waiting for a command that would never come. The chronicles claim his tomb was a replica of the cosmos itself. Constellations crafted in pearls, mountains shaped from bronze, rivers flowing with liquid silver, a kingdom for a man who could not bear to leave his own. And somewhere, deep beneath that buried palace, they say the emperor still sits upon his throne of jade. His eyes open, his hands reaching for a crown that time has already taken. The wall remains, his tomb remains, his name still carved into the bones of history. But his immortality came not through the elixir he sought. It came through legend. For in every stone of the Great Wall, in every silent soldier guarding his tomb, in every whisper carried by the wind across the northern plains, his dream endures. A dream born of fear, built with blood, and carried into eternity by the will of one man who refused to die. He built his empire to defy heaven, and in the end became part of it. 2,000 years have passed since the first emperor's heart turned to dust. Empires have risen and fallen. Kings have come and gone. But the wall, his wall, still stands. It winds across the mountains like a scar of memory, its stones worn smooth by wind and rain, its shadow stretching farther than any army ever marched. It is no longer a barrier of war, but a monument to something deeper, the unending hunger of mankind to outlast itself. Historians call it an engineering marvel, architects call it a wonder of the world, but to those who walk its length at dawn, when mist clings to the earth and silence reigns, it feels like something else entirely. It feels alive. They say if you listen closely, you can still hear the echo of hammers, the cries of laborers, the whispers of the forgotten, woven into the mortar, bound to the stones. Their names are lost, but their story endures in every step, every brick, every breath of cold wind that drifts across its spine. And perhaps that is the truth the emperor could never see. Immortality does not belong to kings or to empires. It belongs to memory, to the stories that survive when power has turned to ash, to the walls that still stand when the men who built them are gone. Qin Shi Huang sought to conquer death. In his quest, he created something greater than himself, not a kingdom of gold, but a monument of silence, and one that speaks louder than any crown or sword ever could. The wall endures, not because it was built to last, but because it was built with belief, the belief that stone could carry the weight of eternity. And maybe in some way it has, for when the sun sets behind the mountains of the north and the wind sings through the watchtowers, the line between history and myth begins to blur. The emperor's dream still lingers in the air, however, sir. Half curse, half prayer. A reminder that the desire to defy time is what makes us human. The Great Wall was meant to guard a nation, but instead it guards a story of ambition, of sacrifice, of the thin, fragile line between man and God. And as the final light fades from the stones, one truth remains eternal. all things end, but legends never die.